Children, let's start with part 2 of lesson 8, materials and solution. In the last video, we had already seen what is solute, solvent, and what is the solubility. The substances which dissolve easily are called soluble substances, and the substances which do not dissolve easily are called insoluble substances. The solubility depends upon the size of the solute, amount of the solute, amount of the solvent, and the temperature. Now, water, whatever is available in nature, is full of impure things. There are many things in it, like the leaves, the paper, all these things are mixed in the water. And when we want to use that water, we cannot use it directly. We have to filter it. So now in the remaining part of the lesson, we are going to learn about the methods of separation of impurities. So children, here there are different methods to separate the impurities. The impurities which are soluble in water are separated by evaporation, and the impurities which are insoluble in water or insoluble in any other liquid can be separated by sedimentation, decantation, and filtration. Now let's start with the removal of soluble impurities. Soluble impurities can be removed by evaporation. Now, what is evaporation? Evaporation is the process of changing water into water vapor on heating. The impurities which are mixed in water can be removed by evaporation. So in that, what we have to do? We have to heat the water till full water evaporates and the soluble impurities will be left behind. So here is an activity. Let's see what it is. For that we need water, salt, burner and beaker. What you have to do? You have to dissolve 2 teaspoons of salt in water. As you have learnt in the last part, that salt can be easily mixed with water. When we add salt into water, it gets easily mixed because it is soluble. So here we have to do the same thing. We have to mix salt in water. Then we have to heat this solution till the water evaporates completely. Now when the water will evaporate completely, whatever left behind is the impurities. But here the impurities is in the form of salt. Why? Because we had mixed salt in water. So the method to remove soluble impurities is evaporation. Now children, let's see the separation of insoluble substances. The insoluble substances can be removed by sedimentation, decantation and filtration. For that, let's take water mixed with little sand and mud. Now you have to let that water which is having sand or mud, you have to let it stand for some time. You will not disturb it. Then after some time, if you see, the sand or the mud particles, they settle at the bottom of the beaker or the container. They settle at the bottom of the container. Why? Because they are heavier than water. They are heavier than water. The mud and the sand is heavier than the water, and so it settles at the bottom. And this, whatever material has settled at the bottom, is called sediments. is called sediments, and this process of settling down the heavy materials is called sedimentation. The process of settling down the heavy materials at the bottom of the container is called sedimentation. Now what we do, slowly, without disturbing these materials, slowly we pour out the upper part of the water. The upper layer of the water, we pass it into another beaker. And this process of passing only the upper layer of the water into another beaker is called decantation. Now here one more method is there, adding alum. Now what do you mean by alum? Alum is a kind of a salt. In Hindi we call it as fitkari. So this alum, it has the property to settle the impurities and make them heavy. The alum has the property to settle the materials, the impurities which are heavier, and this process is called loading. So when we add alum in muddy water, the materials, the impurities will settle at the bottom, and this is called loading. Now children, one more method is there, that is filtration. The impurities like the leaves or the paper bits which are there in water, or the small particles of sand which are there in the water, can be removed with the help of this process. In this process, we have to take a filter paper. A filter paper is a very fine paper having small minute holes or pores which allow only water to pass. So we have to take a filter paper, we have to fold it in the shape of a cone, and we have to put it in a funnel. See, this is called funnel. So inside this we have to put the filter paper. Then whatever water is there with the impurities, that we have to pass it through this filter paper which is in the form of a cone. So what will happen? Slowly and slowly the water will move from the pores of the filter paper into the jar, and the sand or the mud particles or the impurities will remain here in the filter paper. So this way we can take out the sand or the muddy water part from the water, and we can get pure water. So this process is called filtration. So my dear children, we can filter dirty water through this method. The simple example is when in your house during the rainy season the dirty water comes, then when we boil it, the dirt particles, they settle at the bottom. But again what we do, we put a fine cloth and then we filter it. In the same way, the filter paper also helps in filtering the impure things. So children, we can use these methods of sedimentation, decantation and filtration to separate insoluble substances. Thank you children.